In the last Ninja Turtles movie, we saw the four heroes in the half-shell teaming up to defeat their arch-nemesis, the Shredder, and saving the city of New York from certain doom. Now, sometime later, they seem to be just a little bit demoralized by the fact that they can't reap the benefits of their hard work. Not only are they admittedly hideous-looking mutants who may or may not be welcomed by the public with open arms, but they must stay true to their ninja ways. They cannot embrace the limelight, and they have to be humanity's secret protectors and remain in the shadows. But somebody has to take credit for saving the day the last time around, and in a pretty amusing character shift, it's the goofy cameraman, Vernon, played by Will Arnett, who makes an arrangement to bask in all the praise. He's getting the key to the city, appearing on the talk show circuit, rubbing shoulders with the city's finest, and becoming a celebrity. I know this is like usually Marvel's area, but I'd personally love to see a one-shot short of Vernon's rise to fame. But anyway, the Turtles, they need to put all that dissatisfaction aside for the time being and focus on the returning threat once more. Shredder is back to his old tricks after somehow surviving a 40-story plummet to the New York pavement, but never mind that. He's scheming to break out of police custody with the aid of his foot soldiers, a brilliant scientist, Baxter Stockman, and two very dumb petty criminals, Bebop and Rocksteady. Shredder has some pretty high aspirations this time around, not only unlocking the key to interdimensional travel, but uncovering a mutagen that can transform people into animals, and even forming an alliance with a big, bad, universe-conquering being known as Krang. You know, the floodgates have opened in recent years with many superheroes fully taking advantage of outlandish science fiction-based plot lines, which I guess in years past couldn't be done due to budgetary reasons, or maybe they just seem too far-fetched, but here they don't seem far-fetched at all. They seem, in fact, very commonplace. No matter the plot, it's really just a backseat to the action scenes, and anybody going to see this movie, whether they're a lifelong fan of the Ninja Turtles or new to the franchise, they're going to come in expecting one thing, and that's to see the Ninja Turtles kicking some butt. And I think the movie delivers on that. Like the last one, this is a Michael Bay-produced movie. This is from Platinum Dunes, but he didn't direct it. The first movie was directed by Jonathan Liebesman, whose previous credits include Wrath of the Titans and Battle Los Angeles. He did not return to direct this one. Instead, we have a director named Dave Green, whose works I'm not too familiar with. His filmography consists of one feature, some short films, TV episodes, and he actually directed the music video for Miles Fisher's New Romance, you know, the Final Destination 5 soundtrack, which for my money is one of the funniest music videos of all time. So it is pretty easy, I think, to feel jaded about Hollywood, about how directors don't even really seem to matter anymore, and they're all a bunch of yes men to direct a film however the studio sees fit, and to suckle at the Michael Bay teat for career sustenance. And while that may be kind of true, I'll say this. Between this and the first movie, there is a distinct difference in filmmaking competency, and the right director with the right skills can make even the most trite, cliched, cookie-cutter Hollywood fare at least seem a little bit more tolerable. I know going into a Ninja Turtles movie not to expect world-class storytelling or anything like that, but one of my biggest complaints about the first movie is how sloppy it was from a technical standpoint. The overabundance of the shaky cam in just about every single scene. It was downright nauseating. And the tilted camera angles to, I guess, make it feel more comic booky or something. And the action scenes in particular, they were just about incoherent, and the entire movie felt like this big, blurry green mess. I thought it was just awfully done. Out of the Shadows, you could argue, still has those same offenses, but to a much smaller degree, and I was actually pleasantly surprised by how good the action scenes were. There's a freeway chase scene that feels just a little bit reminiscent of the much superior one we saw in The Dark Knight. There's an action climax involving a city-destroying spaceship known as the Technodrome that is very reminiscent of Man of Steel. And there's even some reconnaissance missions thrown in that feel almost like they could have been lifted from any of the Mission Impossible movies. We basically get the light PG-rated versions of these scenes here, which I don't really see as a bad thing. After all, this is Ninja Turtles, right? The target audience is little kids at the end of the day. And as much as, say, a parent may want to throw their kid in front of like the Dark Knight and be like, "Here, watch this." This is probably a little bit too mature for, say, a 5 or a 6-year-old, right? So here's the next best thing to hold them off until they're old enough to watch something better. Most importantly of all, though, with the non-action scenes, there's a higher focus on the humor coming from the characters. There are actually some really genuinely funny moments from just about all the characters here, especially everyone's favorite goofball Michelangelo, who I felt was a little shortchanged in the previous movie, and they kind of changed the character to make him really, really perverted and kind of creepy, but here he's improved upon, and he gets a lot of funny highlights here, actually. It stays fairly true to the characters as we know them in all aspects. Mikey's antics, Donatello's ingenuity, Leonardo's struggle to be a good leader, and Raphael's angst. There's even a pretty interesting aspect to the plot involving Donatello's discovery that the mutagen could potentially hold the ability to transform turtles into humans, and Leonardo keeping this discovery secret, and of course some tensions between him and Raphael once the cat's out of the bag, and the brothers all kind of dealing with the possibility that they could somehow become human instead of the mutant freaks shunned into the sewers like they are. Not that it's a dramatic focus of the movie or anything like that, more of kind of like a subplot, but I do think it was kind of interesting and kind of a quandary we've never seen the Turtles deal with before, at least not in a movie. They've adopted human culture, they act like humans, and they fight to protect humans, so naturally they'd be tempted to become humans themselves if given the opportunity to do so. Of the other characters, there's a decent enough array here. As I mentioned, I thought Will Arnett's character, Vernon, was pretty funny, and I like where they took the character. Megan Fox is back playing April O'Neil. She's focused on less than she was in the first movie, which I guess is a good thing. But she still has some good moments and helps out the Turtles, as you can expect, including spying on Baxter Stockman and having to dress up as a sexy schoolgirl because, well, who cares why. She was pretty good, and it's at least still a meatier part than what she was given in any of the Transformers movies. Fan favorite Casey Jones is also in the movie, played by Stephen Amell, who's probably the weakest point in the movie. I mean, compared to, say, Elias Koteas, who is like the Casey Jones, the best. He doesn't really stack up. The guy's pretty lightweight by comparison. He's not really good, not really bad, but he's just kind of there, you know? So he doesn't make that big of an impact in the movie one way or another. In one of the more strange casting choices, there's Tyler Perry playing the scientist Baxter Stockman, who most people familiar with the Turtles may recall is the guy who gets turned into a giant fly. So I guess they're saving that for the third film because he's only human here, and not that Tyler Perry does that bad of a job in it, but it's just that the character, I think, is written in such a way that you're not really sure if he's a good guy or if he's a bad guy or if he's just being like coaxed into evil work by the Shredder or something like that. I guess he's just so obsessed with his scientific breakthroughs that he doesn't really care what team he's playing for, you know? I think they could have made the character at least a little bit more interesting by giving him a little more motive than being the science guy who wants to science and looking a lot like Neil deGrasse Tyson. I thought the Shredder was handled pretty well here. He's played by Brian T. this time around, and for the most part, save for a few scenes, he's not donning the famous Shredder helmet this time around, but he does certainly take advantage of the threatening claws on his wrist. I would have liked to see a big action scene with him take place, but after the incredibly over-the-top suit, with like 50 blades sticking out of everywhere from the first movie, I guess this kind of proves that less is more. He's pretty good. He feels like, at the end of the day, a generic evil kind of villain with a threatening grimace, but he pulled it off well enough. Bebop and Rocksteady are also in the movie, playing the easily manipulated thugs who get turned into a boar and a rhino. I know a lot of fans have been dying to see them portrayed in a Turtles movie for forever, especially after the red-headed stepchild versions that were Toka and Razor in The Secret of the Ooze. Well, here they are, in all their glory. I think they're done just about right. They're the brainless henchmen who try to take down the Turtles and follow Shredder's every order. Feels pretty familiar. And they have some funny moments, but I'll say the majority of the most juvenile humor in the movie comes directly from these two guys. They are in no short supply of fart and even dick jokes, so take that however you want. Probably the most amusing thing to me about these two characters is how they barely seem affected, like, at all. That they've transformed from humans to these huge, grotesque beasts, and they kind of like it. They kind of just roll with it. And finally, there is Krang, another character fans have been clamoring for. He's not bad. He's pretty much the same character I do remember from the cartoon, for what it's worth. Maybe the casting of Brad Garrett voicing the role was a little off, though. I think Garrett is a very talented actor on the whole, but at the same time, every time Krang was on screen, all I could think of was Fatso from the Casper movie. Remember that? But maybe that's just me. Oh yeah, and Laura Linney is in the movie. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Out of the Shadows is far from perfection. It's definitely not a perfect movie, but I had a lot of fun watching it, which, as someone who didn't think all that much of the first movie, was a pleasant surprise to me. In taking elements from the comics, the cartoon, the video games, the previous movies, and just about anything else that they could, this is a Ninja Turtles movie that has a real grasp of its source material and the spirit behind it, blending absurd comic book fantasy with character-based humor, exciting and well-executed action sequences, and lots of pizza. And I think Out of the Shadows is entertaining enough to satisfy older fans, bring in the new, and probably even appeal to people who don't even really like the Ninja Turtles. So I rate Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Out of the Shadows 3 stars out of 4. What can I say? It's a totally tubular sequel, and not only is it leaps and bounds better than its predecessor, but it's also the best live-action TMNT film we've seen since the 1990 version. So God help me, I love this movie, what can I tell you? I really was surprised, and again, coming from a mindset of really not liking the first one at all, I was very pleasantly surprised and kind of taking a leap of faith on this movie. So I gotta say, it's again not perfect. I'm still not crazy about the design of the turtles. I think they look revolting, really, but I think it nails their personalities pretty well, and the action scenes are really good. I was very surprised by that as well, and generally a funny movie and entertaining. So what can I tell you? So I'll tell anybody who, if you didn't like the first one, take a chance on this one. You might be surprised like I was. So comment below. I'd love to hear what you think of the movie, especially if you're like someone like me who hated the first one, then actually enjoyed this one. So I'm very curious to see if there's others in that camp. So thanks very much for watching. That's my review. Be sure to comment, rate, subscribe, all that good stuff. Visit Derek237.com. And until next time, cowabunga.